Hello. Sorry that I haven't been streaming. I've been sick. Normally when I get sick, I do the thing, you feel a little bit better one day and then you stream and then you get you feel worse because you spent 2, 3, 4 hours talking when you should have been resting in bed, drinking your soup, having a smoothie, whatever else. So I thought this time I would just not stream at all. Just relax. Drink lots of soup, lots of smoothies. And it's worked. Still got a little bit of cough. The sickness is gone, just a little phlegmy, feeling pretty good, honestly, between that and the Halloween and just, oh my God, so much has been going on, folks. So much has been going on, but I've been having a great time apart from being sick and the headache and the cough. Hope you've been good. So I wanted to talk about something super quick. See, I still got the phlegm a little bit. Super quick. So, you know how there's been a political shift in the right where, obviously you have like the neocons and then it's shifted into the MAGA movement, but the MAGA movement is ideologically vacuous apart from it being a personality cult centered around Trump. So in the absence of any kind of prevailing ideology, something had to fill the gap. And it seems pretty clear that what's filling the gap now, at least, is neo-Nazism. The big decision maker for the Trump administration, who is, of course, Stephen Miller is a neo-Nazi. J.D. Vance is a neo-Nazi. Presumably every single young Republican is, or I shouldn't overstate the case. Most young Republicans, the ones who are doing the messaging for the White House, they're neo-Nazis. We see the posts they make on Twitter. They're all freaks. They're all just they're all, using insular internet neo-Nazi memes to appeal to each other. It's all largely like vice signaling and ineffectual, but it's a signal, right? It's a signal. They're trying to show you something. They want you to see it. And I wanted to talk about this because over time, right, as the right shifts more and more to this, and look, okay, as bad as things may seem right now, Nazism is like a 95-5 issue, 90-10 maybe. Nazis can advance their goals when they're speaking in coded language and lying about what they really want, but the actual end goal of Nazism, what they want, what they're really fighting for, is detestable to most Americans, including Republicans. Christ, I'm pretty sure that according to just based on basic Pew Research polling, most Republicans still will say something like 80% of Republicans will say they disagree with the statement that having too many different races, religions, cultures in our country makes the country weaker. That's like a low bar. That's not even Nazism. A lot of Republicans on some level still believe diversity is our strength. I know it sounds crazy because it doesn't line up with their messaging, but that's the median voter for you, okay? There are inconsistencies between what people believe is right and what they actually support. Big inconsistencies. And Nazis work largely by stretching that inconsistency as much as they can. How do you get people who still believe in things like love, justice, kindness, fairness, democracy to support everything that you're doing and everything that you're saying when you believe in none of those things? That's their trick. That's their goal. Anyway, big news on that front, that shift. Nick Fuentes recently went on the Tucker Carlson show, and they greeted each other as all right-wingers do. Here, I love this clip.
I thought you were a Fed.
I thought you were a Fed.
Perfect. It's like bird mating calls in the wild for these people.
Was a Fed.
Yeah. I'm not a Fed. But whatever, I don't care what people think.
We showed each other a badge as we know we're all.
No, but I thought you were a Fed because I was like, why not? It's not cucking to say you're not talking about all Jews when you oppose a foreign policy position. It's not. There's nothing liberal about that. It's just true. That's the Christian position. Mm-hmm. Okay. And two, why are you attacking the best people and not the worst people?
Well, yeah, again, he disavowed me for my views on Israel and said I talk too much about white people and Christianity. And to me, that's like a sincere ideological disagreement.
I get it.
And
riveting stuff. It goes on as such. The whole thing, they're both Nazis. I hate having to make this distinction. Okay, they're both grifters, but different kinds of grifter. It's not that they don't believe in Nazism. It's that Nazism is like a rhetorical pantomime. It's like a yes and game that they can play with the cameras and with their audience to say things that are appealing, to engage in the hype, to get based dub moments. It's not about there's no internal battle, right? I think that usually when people have a deep, sincere, committed belief in something, they have like like an internal world where there's a conflict, different values and ideas, a dialectic that plays out in their head, where they're trying to reconcile their behavior and their beliefs to become a better person. I don't think these people tend to have those struggles because, you know, in their case, it's more just like playing it up to the crowd. The same way that like, you know, an actor or a theater performer might not have an internal struggle over the inconsistency between the behavior of their character and their own personal moral beliefs because they understand it's a character. It's a separation they keep in their head. But I'm armchair psychoanalyzing, you know. I just don't think these people believe much of the shit they say. For me particular, you know, anytime I hear these people talk about being Christians, my eyes roll out of my skull. These people are like the most unchrist-like, not even in like a hippie Christ kind of way. They're not very pious. Like I grew up around religious people. They don't act like religious people at all. They talk about it the same way the like trad cats do on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, what does Christianity mean to you? Well, it means Deus Vult, brother. Like it doesn't, there's nothing internal or sincere, but I'm getting ahead of myself or possibly behind myself here. So anyway, the interesting thing here is not this, but, you know, Tucker Carlson, big figure on the right, really been platforming, I guess, or playing into the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel line, trying to outflank the Democrats on being anti-Israel. A lot of Republicans, especially a lot of young Republicans, are anti-Israel, of course, but they're not anti-Israel for the same reason that Democrats are, as I'm sure you can imagine, but support for Israel and everything that represents, you know, complicity with the MIC, Palantir, surveillance state bullshit, whatever else. That's been a big part of the Uniparty for a while. So, okay, you have fringe nutcases like Fuentes and Tucker, popular, but nonetheless fringe nutcases, ideologically, who are openly bandying this stuff. Okay, fine. What about the Heritage Foundation? You know? I mean, they're like the policymakers for the right, you know? They're crazy and they're far right, sure, especially since the end of the first Trump term. But they do seem to have their eyes on the prize. They're a little bit more pragmatic. Well, president of the Heritage Foundation recently put out a statement that's been getting a lot of buzz.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned.
Again, keep in mind that this is in response to his talk between Tucker Carlson and Fuentes. Fuentes is openly and unapologetically anti-Semitic. At least he used to be. I mean, now he plays it a little bit safer, I think, with like couching the criticisms and criticisms of Israel and speaking a little bit more. A long time ago, Fuentes made the decision that he could either do the Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk's like also a neo-Nazi. Charlie Kirk, he could do the Charlie Kirk thing and bend the knee to the establishment rhetoric and be very big as like a mainstream conservative, or he could cultivate like his own cultish fan base and be more open about what he believes, right? And Fuentes chose one way, and now that, you know, Charlie Kirk is gone, I think that Fuentes might see an opening to kind of like lean a little more in, though he has been doing this for a while, since long before Charlie Kirk's assassination, being a little bit smarter about the dog whistles. Of course, the right obviously doesn't give a shit about anti-Semitism. They've always been willing to work with neo-Nazis. But, you know, there are people within the Republican Party who would balk at this kind of association.
My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so, with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology. But when it doesn't, conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington.
So this is just JQ rhetoric, right? Essentially what the Heritage Foundation is saying here is, look, we have political motivations to support Israel. There are like business contracts. There are financial and political ties here that we're looking to preserve. However, we don't have a problem with you, good white Christians, criticizing Israel, as long as you're not anti-Semitic. Wink! We wouldn't want to censor you like those globalists and their mouthpieces in Washington. You know, it's the rhetoric is clear here, right? Like, essentially, we'll enable and tolerate anti-Semitism as long as you put the barest effort into veiling it. But we still have contracts in Israel. So let's not, you know, it's not as if Israel minds anti-Semitism. They foment it constantly. It's like the more anti-Semitic the world is, the more Israel gets to pretend it's making Jews safe.
The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We don't take direction from comments on X, though we are grateful for the robust free speech debate.
It's just worth noting that if you look back, like historically, at the way that conservatives speak, this obsession with using Christians as a dog whistle, it's a relatively contemporary thing. I mean, obviously the term Christian has been around for ages, so has Christianity. But like, again, for one, these people aren't like really Christian. And for two, like, the most religious people in the world are your grandpa. The most religious people in the world are like, Mexican grandmas. They're 80-year-old dudes in Italy. They're guys in the American Midwest with a cross necklace who've been going to the same, like, dilapidated church every day for 63 years. They don't talk like this, this hearkening to the term Christian. It's this Deus Vult Men of the West rhetoric. You know what I mean? The Heritage Foundation made a shift after the end of the first Trump term, after January 6 failed, which was like the Heritage Foundation used to be composed primarily of, smarmy neocon technocrats who were interested in using the Republican Party as a vehicle for imposing, the same deregulatory agenda you would expect, tax cuts and so on. But there was a shift. There was a shift in the Heritage Foundation because they found that they were becoming completely irrelevant. Nobody was actually interested in any of these things as a first principle anymore. Nobody on the right, certainly not popular figures on the right, pundits, politicians, wanted to fight for these causes as like first order principles anymore. The culture war had left them in the dust. So there were changes in who was in top, what rhetoric was prioritized, who was in charge. And as a consequence, the Heritage Foundation, I mean, you see this in Project 2025, embraced a lot of like very culture war centric, very openly far right, openly conspiratorial. I mean, stuff that isn't even like advantageous to Republicans policy wise. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff that they advocate for, it's not even to their betterment. It's about playing into a host of culture war grievances that are meant to help them politically. It's not really about making anything or anyone better. And this is kind of the final extension of that, I think. If that's the direction that you're going in, making anything better for any group of people, we're just going to play into these grievances. Kowtowing to neo-Nazis is pretty much like the final frontier on that, right? It's the last place that you can go. But again, this is a 90-10 issue, There are limits to how far you can pull this. And I think in part because they're not willing to go full course, and in part because the average American just doesn't want to spend the rest of their life goose stepping.
We also don't take direction from members or donors, though we are inherently grateful for their support. And we're adding more every day. This is the robust debate we invite with our colleagues, our movement friends, our members, and the American public. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation. The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most important.
Again, the reason this language is vague is because what he's trying to imply to unaware outsiders is that the people canceling him are like lefties or rhinos or something, when the people who are most upset with what's happening here, for the most part, are far-right, Jewish, and neocon aligned donors. Like this fella, for example. I'm pulling this one out of a hat. I saw this fella, John Podhoretz, probably a Cuomo voter, I'm figuring. He was I recognize this tweet. That's why I pulled it up. He was the guy who said Trump bombed Iran. He can say, can I say it? I probably can't say it, even though I grew up with Jewish friends. The ass slur 100 times a day forever, as far as I'm concerned. That's after Trump said it, very funnily on camera. Unfortunately, like a lot of the organizations that used to combat anti-Semitism don't, because they're all too busy accusing Mamdani of being anti-Semitic. The ADL. The ADL has said nothing, by the way, in the same way that they defended Trump, defended Elon Musk's Hitler salute. Every single pro-Israeli organization would rather be pro-Israel than anti-Semitism. And as a consequence, they have been relentlessly going after left protesters. They've been aiding and abetting in Trump's carceral state, surveillance state, ICE going after protesters, State Department deporting people who criticize Israel. And, pardon me for paraphrasing the poem here, or the saying, but first they came for the blank, then they came for me. Sorry, buddy, well, first they came for the communists and the socialists and the trade unionists, and in this case, the pro-Palestinian protesters. There is no real front on the right, at least anymore, for opposing anti-Semitism, because the right is completely kowtowed to open anti-Semites who are tolerating Israel as a political necessity only, and are otherwise, just rabidly anti-Semitic. There's not really any ground for them. And it's not like these people are going to shift over. I mean, think of like Ben Shapiro, become increasingly irrelevant over the past decade, in large part, not because he's not racist, he is, or sexist or transphobic, he's all those things, but in large part because Shapiro's Jewish. And the rhetorical wedge that he was meant to occupy, the job that he had, more and more over time has become filled, this space has been filled with open neo-Nazis. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, even to a large extent, Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh. To varying extents, all of them have bandied about in the same language. The reliance on, globalists, men of the West, return, etc. They all play with it to varying extents, though admittedly openly embracing Nick Fuentes is, definitely an additional step forward, but what are you going to do? Anyway, I'm overstating my case. Let's finish the Heritage Foundation message here.
The American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. And we have seen success in this approach as we continue to dismantle the vile ideas of the left.
Liberal fascism. The tolerance of Nazism, not as an open endorsement of its ideas and proposals, but rather in the interest of maintaining an open marketplace of free ideas while you run the policy division of a fascist state. You know what I mean? These people, they can't shove their dick in the peanut butter jar, is what I'm saying. It's you want to be goose stepping up and down Broadway, but you can't because you're limited rhetorically in what you can do to advocate for neo-Nazism. We won't cancel Nick Fuentes. It's pussy language, honestly. It's endorsement or nothing with these people in their head, in this guy's heart. It's his heart seek heiling. But he wants the endorsement. He wants to dispel with this this disagreement entirely. He doesn't want there to be like an open debate about any of this, But I guess for them, that's a step too far.
As my friend Vice President Vance said last night, what I am not okay with is any country coming before the interest of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we are American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's where our allegiance lies, and that's where it will stay.
I will say, though, I am a little bit terrified by the idea of the right outflanking the left, or I should say, the right outflanking the Democrats on being anti-Israel. Like the Democrats just, continue to allow Israel to be the anchor tied to their ankle, sinking them down into the deep. The right being the only political group willing to say, hey, are you ready and willing to finally hate Israel, which they deserve? But oh boy, do we hate them for different reasons than the left. But to a lot of people, it will make a difference. I already see a lot of people on social media, people on the left, going, oh my God, did you see Tucker Carlson? Did you see Candace Owens criticize Israel? And it's like, yeah, buddy, why do you think they're criticizing it? Ay. Grim stuff. But like I said, it's a 90-10 issue. We'll see how it plays out. On other news, by the way, I'm well recovered from being sick, a little phlegmy. What are you going to do? But apart from that, feeling pretty okay. My understanding is that there's an event going on tomorrow. By tomorrow, I mean, of course, November first. I'm meeting with some PV canvassers over here in the great city of Seattle to advocate for the prospective future mayor, my candidate for mayor, Katie Wilson, cool lady. And I'm going to see her. We're going to talk for a hot second, say how to do. And the canvassers will be there, Katie Wilson will drum up the troops, and then they'll be sent off canvassing, sent off to die on a battlefield somewhere. I don't know what canvassing is. I don't know what they do. God bless them, though. Really, though, I mean, it's pretty cool. I never thought that I'd have the opportunity. I really hope she wins. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to go out there and meet, a mayoral candidate who might just be on the precipice of winning. Really hope she wins. Election's just a couple of days away. What a terrible time for me to have gotten sick the past couple of days. I would have been gunning this up for a while, Anyway, I hope you all are doing well. And I'll be back to streaming properly soon. Just have to drink a couple, couple more milkshakes, do a couple more squats. I'll be good and ready to stream, and I'll be back here, and you can enjoy my my dulcet tones a little more. I miss it. I miss streaming, folks. I really enjoy streaming, but man, do I not want to do it while I'm all stuffy and have a cough and so on. But yeah, bye.